Billionaires are used to controlling everything: markets, empires, even the rhythm of their own lives. But what happens when the one person closest to them, the one person they trust most, is keeping a secret that money can't uncover? This is the story of Alexander Cole, a self-made billionaire whose name was synonymous with success, power, and influence. He built skyscrapers, acquired companies, and turned failing businesses into thriving empires. But even with a sharp eye for deals and deception, there was one thing Alexander never saw coming. A secret hidden in plain sight by the woman he loved most, his wife, Isabella. For years, Isabella had stood beside him, a graceful presence in boardrooms and charity galas. To the outside world, she was the perfect billionaire's wife, elegant, loyal, unshakably supportive. But beneath her flawless smile lay a truth she had carried silently, a truth that would one day turn Alexander's world upside down. When the secret finally came out, his reaction shocked not just her, not just their family, but everyone who thought they knew the man behind the empire. This isn't just a story about wealth. It's a story about love, betrayal, redemption, and the power of truth. From the outside, Alexander and Isabella Cole seemed like a dream. They weren't just wealthy, they were a brand. The world loved to watch them, photograph them, and speculate about their lives. Tabloids called them the golden couple, while business magazines hailed Alexander as one of the most brilliant minds of his generation. He had the sharp, commanding air of a man used to getting his way. A billionaire who had earned his empire through ruthless deals and an unshakable work ethic. Standing 6 feet tall, with silver hair brushed neatly back and piercing blue eyes, Alexander commanded attention the moment he walked into a room. He was the lion everyone respected, even feared. At his side, Isabella provided the perfect contrast. Where Alexander was sharp edges and ambition, Isabella was grace and calm. Her beauty wasn't loud, but timeless, the kind that never went unnoticed. Her presence at charity galas, art exhibitions, and exclusive dinners often stole the spotlight as much as Alexander's financial triumphs. With her dark, flowing hair, warm hazel eyes, and poised smile, she radiated elegance. Together, they lived in a mansion on the city's highest hill, a palatial estate of marble columns, mirrored halls, and gardens so carefully designed they looked like living paintings. Inside, crystal chandeliers glistened like constellations, and priceless art adorned every wall. From the outside, looking in, theirs was the kind of life most people could only dream of. Yet perfection has cracks, and often they are invisible to everyone but the person holding them inside. Isabella carried hers in silence. Every night, when the parties ended, when the last glass of champagne was cleared away, and the house fell quiet, she would retreat to her favorite window. From there, she could see the city stretching endlessly below, a million flickering lights, each belonging to someone unknown, someone living a life far removed from her own. She often wondered what it might feel like to live anonymously, without the eyes of the world watching, without reporters writing about her wardrobe, without every move being analyzed as the billionaire's wife. And then there was the secret, the one truth she had hidden from Alexander since the very beginning. It wasn't that she didn't trust him, she did in her own way. She loved him too, but this secret was different. It was a piece of her life that belonged only to her, a past she feared might destroy the world they had built together if it ever came into the light. Alexander never noticed the quiet tension in her gaze. He was too focused on building, conquering, expanding. To him, life was a chessboard, and he was always 5 moves ahead of everyone else. He believed he could read anyone, outsmart anyone. But with Isabella, he never looked close enough to see beyond her smile. Theirs was a marriage admired by many, envied by most. But beneath the surface of glittering perfection, Isabella's secret waited, silent, patient, like a shadow that never left her side. And she knew, deep down, that no secret could stay buried forever. The first sign came on a night no different from any other. The Coles were hosting another of their legendary dinners, where politicians rubbed shoulders with tech moguls and artists mingled with bankers. Waiters in white gloves moved silently between tables, pouring vintage wine into crystal glasses. Alexander thrived in these settings. He stood at the head of the table, recounting stories of his latest acquisition, every word commanding admiration. He had a way of speaking that made people lean forward, as though his voice carried not just ideas but promises of power. Isabella, as always, played her role flawlessly. She smiled in all the right places, laughed at the witty remarks, and complimented the wives of investors with effortless grace. But when one guest, a sharp-eyed journalist, asked her a simple question, she froze. "Isabella, tell us," the woman said lightly, her pen resting idly against her notebook. "What was your life like before you met Alexander?" The question was innocent enough, one that had been asked before. Normally, Isabella deflected it with ease. But this time, something inside her faltered. For the briefest moment, her eyes flickered with a shadow of unease. Before she could answer, Alexander chuckled and interjected. "Oh, Isabella's always been an angel. She lived a charmed life before she made mine even better." The table erupted in laughter, and the spotlight shifted back to him. But Isabella remained quiet, her smile slightly too tight, her fingers gripping her glass of wine just a little too firmly. Later that night, when the guests had gone and Alexander basked in the glow of yet another successful evening, Isabella retreated to her window, as she always did. She stared out at the city, her reflection mingling with the lights beyond. The journalist's question replayed in her mind like a warning bell. Her past was supposed to stay buried. Yet the world had a way of digging, and she knew it was only a matter of time before someone unearthed the truth. The second sign came weeks later. Alexander's company was featured in a major profile, and the article included a section about his family. They praised Isabella for her philanthropic work and elegance, but one line stopped her cold. Though little is known about her early life, Isabella Cole has become an icon in her own right. It was a throwaway sentence, but to Isabella, it felt like a dagger. Little is known. That was true, deliberately true. But what if curiosity turned into investigation? What if little became everything? Her secret was no longer safe in silence. It was a storm gathering on the horizon. And as she watched Alexander, confident and unshakable as ever, she wondered what would happen when that storm finally broke. Would the man who built empires be able to withstand the truth about his own wife? Isabella's heart whispered the answer she feared most. Maybe not. It began with a letter. A simple envelope, cream-colored and embossed with an unfamiliar seal, slipped under the mansion door one quiet morning. Isabella picked it up with hesitant fingers, recognizing immediately that it was not just ordinary correspondence. The handwriting, neat, deliberate, sent a chill down her spine. Inside was a single sheet of paper, containing only a few lines. The truth always finds its way. Some secrets are not meant to stay hidden forever. M. Her pulse quickened. M. That was the first initial of someone from her past. She had long buried a chapter of her life she never wanted Alexander to know existed. A chapter that could shatter everything they had built together. She spent the day pacing her sunlit halls, her mind racing through possibilities. Who could have sent it? And why now? Isabella had lived a life of careful control, ensuring every detail of her past remained locked away. Yet, in a world where even the smallest curiosity could turn into a headline, she realized control was an illusion. Alexander noticed her unease, but dismissed it at first. "Something on your mind?" he asked over breakfast, offering a reassuring smile. Isabella shook her head, forcing herself to appear calm. "Just a little tired," she said lightly. But even as she spoke, she could feel the pressure of the secret pressing closer. Every smile she gave felt heavier, every conversation laced with a tension she couldn't erase. That evening, a figure from her past appeared. A man in a tailored suit, sharp and composed, standing in the driveway of the mansion. Isabella's heart stopped. It was Michael, someone from a chapter of her life she thought had ended years ago. Michael had known her before Alexander, before the wealth, before the empire. And he knew the secret. He did not knock. He simply waited, his presence a silent accusation. Isabella's mind raced. Why now? What did he want? And, most terrifying of all, what would Alexander do if he found out? When Alexander finally noticed Michael, he raised an eyebrow, clearly confused. Who is that? Isabella hesitated, the words caught in her throat. This was the moment she had feared for years. He's someone from my past, she said finally, her voice steady but low. Alexander's eyes narrowed slightly, a spark of curiosity, and perhaps the first hint of doubt, flashing in their depths. Your past? And it just shows up here unannounced? Michael's presence was a silent threat. It was a reminder that no empire, no amount of wealth, could shield them from truths long hidden. And as the three of them stood in the driveway, the mansion's golden lights glowing behind them, Isabella realized that the illusion of perfection was about to shatter. Her secret would no longer wait patiently in the shadows. The tension in the mansion was palpable. Michael's presence lingered like a storm cloud, casting long shadows over the polished floors and gleaming chandeliers. Alexander stood rigid, his sharp blue eyes narrowing as he took in the scene. Isabella's carefully constructed calm seemed to fray with every heartbeat. Isabella, Alexander began, his voice measured but heavy with suspicion. I think it's time you tell me exactly who this is and what he wants. Isabella swallowed hard. Every instinct screamed to protect her secret, yet the weight of years spent hiding it pressed down on her. She met Alexander's gaze, steadying herself. This is Michael, she said, her voice quiet but firm. He knows something from my past, something I never wanted to come to light. Alexander's expression shifted, a mixture of disbelief and irritation. Something from your past? Do you think I don't deserve to know what that is? Do you think I built everything we have together without the right to the truth? Michael stepped forward slightly, his eyes calm, almost calculating. I'm not here to hurt anyone, he said, but some truths cannot be buried forever. She has hidden this for years. Now it's time it's faced. Isabella's heart pounded. She knew the consequences if Alexander reacted with anger, pride, or betrayal. But to her surprise, the first response he gave was not fury. It was silence. He simply stared, studying her as though trying to read her very soul. Finally, he spoke. You trusted me with everything, Isabella. And yet this secret you've kept from me, it changes everything. His voice cracked slightly, betraying a vulnerability he rarely showed. Why didn't you trust me enough to tell me sooner? Tears welled in Isabella's eyes. I was afraid, she admitted. I loved you too much to risk losing you. I thought if I could handle it alone, I could protect us. But I see now that keeping it from you is wrong. Alexander's gaze softened, though his eyes remained stormy. Do you realize what this means? We built a life together on trust, and now I have to reconcile this truth with everything I thought I knew about us. Michael, sensing the moment, quietly excused himself, leaving Alexander and Isabella alone. The mansion, once a symbol of perfection, felt hollow and fragile in the aftermath of revelation. Isabella stepped closer. I know I broke that trust, she whispered, but I never stopped loving you. I never stopped believing in us. Alexander took a deep breath, pacing the room. He paused, finally looking at her with an intensity that made her heart tremble. I don't know if I can forgive this, he admitted honestly. But I do know one thing. I need to understand everything. No more hiding. No more secrets. In that moment, a fragile bridge of truth began to form between them. The storm had arrived, and yet, within its turbulence, there was the first glimmer of hope that love and honesty might endure. The mansion, which had always been a fortress of control and perfection, felt different now. Shadows stretched longer along the polished marble floors, and the chandeliers above seemed to cast cold, almost judgmental light. Alexander walked through the halls in silence, his hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on nothing and everything at once. Every step echoed like a question, demanding answers he wasn't sure he wanted to hear. Isabella followed quietly, each step hesitant. She had spent years rehearsing the moment she might have to tell Alexander her secret, but nothing had prepared her for the weight of his presence after he had finally learned the truth. She could feel the tension in the air, a charged energy that seemed ready to snap at any moment. "Sit down," Alexander finally said, his voice low but commanding, pulling her attention away from the walls lined with priceless art. She obeyed, sinking into the soft leather armchair in the corner of his study. He remained standing, pacing slowly, each movement deliberate. "Tell me everything," he said finally, stopping and facing her. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes, the ones that had built empires and conquered rivals, were filled with something new: vulnerability. Isabella took a deep breath. "Alexander, this secret, it's something I've carried since long before I met you. It's not just a mistake or a regret. It's a part of me that I feared would destroy the life we've built together." Alexander's jaw tightened. "Do you know how it feels to have built a life, to trust someone completely, and then discover that there's a hidden piece of their world you had no knowledge of? For years, I thought I knew everything about you, Isabella. And now I realize I didn't." Her hands trembled slightly as she clasped them together. "I never wanted to hurt you. I wanted to protect you. I wanted to protect us. I thought I could handle it on my own, and I thought if I did, it would be enough. But now, I see that keeping it from you is selfish." Alexander sank into the chair opposite her, the weight of emotion pressing down on his broad shoulders. "I don't know how to reconcile this," he admitted. "I've spent my life trusting logic, analyzing risk, predicting outcomes. But this is beyond analysis. This is personal. This is hard." Isabella's voice quivered. "I understand if you can't forgive me, but I need you to know one thing. I have never stopped loving you. Every choice I made, every day I lived in fear of this coming out. I hope to earn the right to stand beside you honestly, without deceit." Alexander sat in silence for a long moment. The room seemed to shrink around them, leaving only two people suspended between love and betrayal. Finally, he exhaled slowly. "Do you realize what this means?" His voice was softer now, but still heavy with intensity. "This changes the foundation of everything we've built. Trust isn't something you can rebuild overnight. It's fragile. And yet," he paused, searching her eyes, "and yet, I can't ignore the fact that the woman I married, the woman I love, is sitting right here, willing to be vulnerable, willing to face the consequences of truth. That means something." Tears welled in Isabella's eyes, and she reached out, tentatively placing her hand over his. Alexander stared at it for a moment before taking it fully in his own. The gesture was simple, yet monumental, a bridge between the past and the possibility of healing. "You have to understand," he continued, "I built everything I have on control, precision, and certainty. But life isn't perfect. People aren't perfect. And apparently, neither is love." He gave a wry, almost bitter smile. "But maybe, just maybe, truth, even when it's painful, is stronger than perfection." Isabella let out a shaky breath. "I want to rebuild, Alexander. I want us to be honest with each other, even when it hurts. I want to be more than the wife you see at galas or in magazines. I want to be your partner, fully, completely, without secrets." Alexander looked at her for a long moment. Then, slowly he nodded. "We'll get there, but it's going to take time. Every trust we rebuild, every truth we confront, it will matter. And we'll face it together. That is how we survive this." For the first time in months, Isabella felt the tight knot in her chest loosen. The mansion, still grand and imposing, no longer felt like a cage. For the first time, it felt like a space where truth could exist. Not just appearances, not just perfection, but real life, with all its messiness and all its power. And in that quiet, profound moment, they both understood that the path ahead would be difficult, that forgiveness would not come easy, and that love would have to be earned anew. But for the first time, there was hope. Hope that even after years of secrecy, a marriage could survive. Hope that honesty could rebuild what deception had fractured. Hope that two people, flawed, human, but devoted, could find their way back to each other. The storm had come. The truth had been revealed. And now, Alexander and Isabella would face it together. In the days following the confrontation, the mansion that had once seemed like a sanctuary became a crucible of tension. Alexander moved through the halls with measured steps, his mind replaying every word Isabella had said, every hesitation in her voice, and the shadow of the secret she had carried for years. He wasn't angry. Not exactly, but the unease gnawed at him like a quiet storm, subtle yet relentless. Isabella, meanwhile, tried to maintain her composure. She managed the household, oversaw charitable projects, and smiled at every public appearance. Yet each moment was a test of endurance. Every laugh at a gala, every pose for a magazine cover felt hollow. Inside, she wrestled with guilt, fear, and a lingering question. Had she ruined everything? Then came the whispers. It started subtly, an acquaintance mentioning a vague rumor, a comment overheard at a charity function. By the third day, Isabella could no longer ignore the growing tide of curiosity. Social media was buzzing with speculation. Headlines hinted at a secret in the Cole marriage, without naming specifics, and the public's imagination filled in the blanks. Alexander sensed it too. One evening, he found Isabella in the library, staring at her reflection in the window. The soft glow of the city lights outside contrasted sharply with the tension in her posture. "They're talking," he said, his voice low but firm. "People are curious. They're watching. And whether we like it or not, this secret is no longer just ours." Isabella turned to him, tears brimming in her eyes. "I never wanted this, Alexander. I wanted to protect us, to protect you. I thought I could handle it. And now," her voice faltered, "now it's out there, even if the details aren't." Alexander sighed, running a hand through his silver hair. "Secrets have a way of escaping, Isabella, but we decide how we respond. We can let it destroy us, or we can face it together. That choice is ours." The next week brought the ultimate test. A reporter from a prominent business magazine arrived unannounced at the mansion, demanding an interview. Alexander met her at the door, calm and composed, but Isabella's heart raced. The thought of her private past being exposed to the world was unbearable. "Mr. Cole," the reporter began, "there are rumors about your wife's history. Can you comment?" Alexander paused, then looked at Isabella. She held his gaze, her eyes silently pleading for honesty, tempered with care. He took a deep breath. "My wife's past is her own," he said firmly. "And while we all have histories, the person I married, the woman beside me, deserves respect, trust, and privacy. That is all I will say." The reporter nodded, sensing the firmness in his tone. "And the secret?" she pressed. Alexander's gaze hardened slightly. "Some truths are private. That's why I choose to focus on the present, on the partnership we've built, and on the values we live by. Everything else is speculation, and speculation will not define us." Isabella exhaled in relief, though the tension did not fully fade. They both knew the storm was far from over. Secrets had a way of resurfacing, and the world's curiosity was relentless. That night, in the quiet of their bedroom, Alexander reached for her hand. "We survived the first wave," he said softly. "The rest of the world might try to break us, but they will not. Not if we face it together." Isabella nodded, feeling a fragile sense of hope. In the whirlwind of suspicion, whispers, and potential exposure, they had chosen a path of honesty and unity. Yet, deep down, she knew there was more to come. A confrontation that would not just test their marriage, but would challenge the very identity of who they were, both individually and as a couple. The world was watching. The secret had begun its slow unraveling, and Alexander and Isabella had to be ready. The following weeks were a test neither Alexander nor Isabella could have predicted. The whispers had grown louder, evolving into a storm. Gossip columns, social media threads, and late-night talk shows dissected the Coles' lives. Headlines hinted at a secret long hidden by Isabella, and every new speculation seemed to gain momentum like wildfire. For Alexander, it was a new kind of challenge, one that no business deal could prepare him for. He had faced hostile takeovers, betrayed partners, and financial crises, but nothing compared to watching the world scrutinize the woman he loved. Each rumor felt like a dagger aimed at the foundation of their marriage. Isabella tried to maintain composure, attending charity events and gala dinners, smiling gracefully for cameras while hiding the anxiety gnawing at her inside. But behind closed doors, the mansion became a war room of strategy and emotional resilience. They spent hours discussing what could be said, what must remain private, and how to navigate the storm without letting the outside world dictate their lives. One evening, the situation escalated. A popular social media influencer posted a video implying that Isabella's secret was scandalous and potentially devastating for Alexander's empire. Within hours, it had gone viral, generating thousands of comments, shares, and theories. The mansion staff, usually accustomed to discreet operations, began fielding inquiries from reporters and delivery personnel alike, all curious about the ongoing saga. Alexander, ever composed in public, was furious in private. He paced the study, hands clenched, while Isabella sat quietly, watching him. "I cannot control the world," he said finally, his voice low but intense. "But I can control how we respond. And we will respond carefully." Isabella nodded. "I know. This is overwhelming. I thought if we stayed private, nothing could touch us. I was wrong." Alexander stopped pacing and turned to face her. "It's not just about the secret anymore. It's about power, the perception of us, of our family, of everything I've built. And yet, I realized something important. Perception isn't reality. You are more than the whispers. You are more than the past. And I choose to stand by you, no matter what they say." Her eyes filled with tears, relief mingling with fear. "Even if the world never forgives me, even then," he said firmly, "even then, because I know the truth. And that is what matters." The next morning, they decided to take action. Together, they released a brief statement through a trusted media outlet. It acknowledged that Isabella had a past, carefully without detail, but emphasized that she had lived honestly for years, dedicating herself to philanthropy, family, and partnership with Alexander. It was a bold move, meant to reclaim the narrative before speculation spiraled further. The reaction was immediate. Some praised their transparency, calling it brave. Others continued to speculate, digging deeper. But Alexander and Isabella faced it together, united. For the first time, the secret that had loomed like a shadow no longer felt like an enemy. They were using truth as a shield, and it gave them unexpected strength. Late that night, Alexander and Isabella sat in the study, side by side, the city lights stretching endlessly outside the window. "I never thought I'd feel proud of facing a scandal," Isabella said quietly. Alexander smiled, a rare, genuine warmth softening his usually stern expression. "Sometimes the greatest tests bring the greatest clarity. We've survived our first storm, and this will only make us stronger." They knew the road ahead would not be easy. There would be more whispers, more scrutiny, and more moments where the past could threaten the present. But for the first time, they faced it with honesty, courage, and unity. The billionaire and his wife had been tested, and they were beginning to emerge, stronger and more resilient than ever. The weeks that followed were a delicate balancing act. The world still watched, still speculated, but Alexander and Isabella had found a rhythm built on honesty, trust, and resilience. They attended public events together, their bond visible in small gestures, a reassuring hand on a shoulder, a quiet glance, a shared smile that spoke of private understanding. Isabella had begun to embrace the freedom that truth brought. The secret she had carried for years, once a shadow haunting every interaction, was no longer a source of shame. Instead, it became a testament to her strength. She realized that hiding from the past had not protected anyone. It had only weighed her down. Alexander, too, had changed. The man who had prided himself on control and calculation had learned that love and trust could not be managed like a business deal. Vulnerability, he discovered, was not weakness. It was the bridge to true connection. One evening, As the city lights glittered beneath their mansion, Alexander took Isabella's hand in his. "We've faced the storm together," he said, his voice steady but soft. "And we've survived it because we chose truth, because we chose each other." Isabella smiled, her eyes shimmering with relief and gratitude. "I never thought I'd feel free," she whispered. "But I do now, because hiding it almost destroyed us, and being honest, it saved us." Their reunion was not just emotional, it was transformative. The Cole story became one of inspiration. In interviews and speeches, they spoke openly about the power of trust, the importance of honesty, and the courage required to face one's past. Their marriage, once a delicate facade, had grown into a resilient partnership that weathered scrutiny, gossip, and doubt. The public, who had once speculated endlessly about Isabella's secret, now saw a couple united not by perfection, but by authenticity. Fans, colleagues, and even former skeptics admired their courage. They had taken what could have been ruin, a long-hidden secret, and turned it into a story of love, trust, and redemption. In private, Alexander and Isabella celebrated the lessons learned. The mansion, once a gilded cage of appearances, became a home of honesty. Their love deepened not because they were flawless, but because they faced flaws together. They discovered that the measure of a person or a marriage was not in wealth, status, or social perfection, but in resilience, courage, and the willingness to embrace truth, no matter how painful. As the sun rose over the city one crisp morning, Alexander stood beside Isabella on the balcony, holding her hand. "We've come a long way," he said, his gaze sweeping across the skyline. "And we'll go even further. Not because the world expects it, but because we choose it. Together." Isabella leaned into him, feeling the warmth and certainty of their renewed bond. "Together," she echoed, knowing that no secret, no storm could ever break what they had now. And in that moment, the Coles understood a profound truth. Some secrets can challenge a life, but facing them with honesty, courage, and love can transform it. What had begun as a hidden past had become the foundation of a future stronger than anything wealth could buy. The billionaire's wife had revealed her secret, and his reaction, though tested by anger, doubt, and fear, had proven that love and trust, when nurtured, could withstand even the most difficult trials. The mansion still gleamed, the city still sparkled, but more importantly, their hearts were free. And in that freedom, they discovered the true measure of life. Not the secrets we hide, but the courage we find to face them together. In the end, the secret that had shadowed Isabella's life for years did not destroy their marriage. It strengthened it. Alexander's reaction, a mix of shock, vulnerability, and ultimately unwavering support, proved that love is far stronger than fear, doubt, or deception. The Coles emerged from the storm not as a perfect couple, but as a resilient one, united by honesty, trust, and courage. Their story became a testament to the truth that the measure of a life and a relationship is not in wealth, appearances, or social approval, but in the strength to confront the past, embrace vulnerability, and choose each other every single day. What began as a hidden secret became the catalyst for growth, redemption, and a love deeper than either had ever known. And in that revelation, they discovered the most valuable lesson of all. True strength lies not in hiding our truths, but in facing them together.